Thank you for joining us. I'm Tamar Jacoby. I'm president of Opportunity America. We're a think tank here in town that promotes, advances economic mobility, work, skills, careers, inclusion. And we're thrilled to be cooperating with the Senate CTE Caucus to organize this event. We're not the only cooperating partners. Also partnering and essential in putting it together was the Association for Career and Technical Education, ACTE, known to most of you as ACTE, and the Industry Workforce Needs Coalition, the IWNC. So a lot of great partners. I'm your moderator today, and looking forward to that. And I'm here to just say a few words to frame the conversation, and then we'll get going. We have a terrific panel, and several senators are going to stop by. And it's also being webcast, so don't jump up and down and say anything untoward. I'm sure all of you know, I probably don't have to explain it to anyone in this room, but the economy is changing in ways that put a bigger premium on skills and education, right? And we see that in the return to college. Everybody knows the difference in incomes between those who complete a four-year college and those who don't complete college is growing. But we also see that return to skills and that new premium on skills in the growing importance of what people call middle skill jobs, right? Those are jobs that require more than high school, but less than a four-year degree. And there's more and more demand for that kind of worker, and there's more and more emphasis on education and training to prepare people for that kind of work. And one of the things that we've learned, that educators have learned as they're training more and more people to do middle skill jobs, is the importance of getting employers involved in that education and training. So why employers? Well, I like to think about three simple scenarios. How does a community college teacher, how is she expected to know exactly what coding language is in demand in the marketplace if she's not in communication with an employer? How's a teacher in a high school who's never been in an advanced manufacturing plant supposed to get kids excited about working in an advanced manufacturing plant? And how's a teacher going to arrange internships for his students if he doesn't have a relationship with a company that can, and has persuaded that company, right, the hard part, to offer internships for high school students or beginning college kids? So employers help educators understand the labor market and plan curricula, two really important roles. They donate equipment and loan professionals for teaching and mentoring. And most important, in my view, they bring students into the workplace to learn about what goes on there and see what it's like to hold a job. So they're a key piece of the puzzle, but the problem is, and anybody who's engaged in this knows, the problem is it can be hard to get employers to engage, right? They're busy, they're focused on the bottom line, they're sometimes too short-sighted to see the value of getting involved in educators or going to schools or thinking about the problem. And even when they want to help, and I think this is the biggest thing, there's often a disconnect between employers and educators. You know, I like to say employers are from Mars and educators are from Venus. They have different views of time. They speak different languages often. They have different views of what a meeting is about. Educators like to come together and talk about things. Employers like to come together and take decisions and act. So clash of cultures. And it can be maddeningly difficult to get them to cooperate and collaborate. But today's panel, and this is what's so exciting about today's panel is made up of 5 employers from companies that do actually successfully cooperate and collaborate with educators training people for middle skill jobs. And what we're going to hear from them is what they do, why they do it, why it's hard, how to make it go more smoothly and successfully, and most important maybe for a lot of the people in this room, what government can do to create some incentives so that more employers get in the game and do what they're doing. So I guess I'm sort of eyeing the door to see if a senator, so I guess we're at perfect timing, a senator is arriving. Hello, Senator. So here we have a senator Senator Kaine from the sponsoring caucus. Thank you so much, sir. You were perfect.
Hi, Dan Conrad.
Afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Everybody doing okay? I like this, standing room only at a CTE caucus meeting. This is fantastic. And I'm not surprised. I think there's a lot of cool things going on in education in this country, but in my view, the coolest is an incredible renaissance and interest in career and technical education. And I want to welcome you to this Employer's Perspective Forum and thank everybody who's participating, especially our panelists. I know Tamar was probably introducing them as I was coming up. I think you're in for a really interesting discussion. A little bit of background. Some of you know my story, so I'll make it short, but some of you may not. I grew up working in my dad's ironworking and welding shop. He was an ironworker organized shop in the stockyards of Kansas City, and really came to appreciate the value of career and technical training because of the artistry of the people that I worked with. I then went to Mizzou and went to Harvard Law School, and in the middle of my time at Harvard, took a year off to work with Jesuit missionaries in Honduras, and they looked at my law training and said, that's completely irrelevant. What can you do? But when they heard about my dad, they put me in charge of a school that taught kids to be welders and carpenters, which was an amazing experience, and that developed an additional passion for CTE. As a mayor of Richmond and then as governor, we put a lot of programs in place to try to drive high-quality career and technical training, whether in middle schools and high schools, or community colleges and colleges, or union apprenticeship programs, or in non-traditional settings like, you know, highly verified or validated online computer coding academies. There's a lot of different ways for folks to get CTE skills, and the workforce desperately needs them. We see this in Virginia, and we see this all over the country, that we have these important technical jobs that are going unfilled because we're not training people in these areas. And that is a very, very important thing to me in a state that really needs more CTE. This is a panel that's about the employer's perspective. It is my hope that the HELP Committee and the Senate will get into Perkins Act reauthorization this year. Now, the Perkins Act is probably my favorite piece of federal legislation because it's not siloed. You know, there's a lot of things we do that silo into, this is about K-12 or this is about higher ed, but Perkins money can basically be used for middle schools or high schools or colleges or community colleges or non-traditional programs, and a good deal of flexibility is given to the governors of the states to determine how to allocate the monies. And we're going to be working on the reauthorizations of the Perkins Act. It is my hope this year. You know, we're trying to see how much work we get done in a presidential year, but Perkins to me is something that doesn't seem to be harshly partisan. We ought to be able to come together and find a path forward. Today, what we're going to hear is from an employer's perspective. Fortune favors the bold, and each of these employers have their stories of, you know, they want to run their businesses, they need skilled folks, and rather than waiting around to hope that they show up from a one ad, they're actually being very proactive in going out and doing innovative programs, often in tandem and in partnership with educational institutions, to make sure that in their, whether it's a business or a broader industry, they can get these skills that they need. And it's so critically important. You know, we have done a disservice to, I think, education and what education should be by basically saying that everybody after high school has to go to college. Everybody needs after high school skills or academic credentials that are validated and high quality. Everybody needs that in today's workforce, but it doesn't always have to be a traditional college. Last thing I'll say, and then you're going to hear from, I think you're going to hear both from Senators Portman and Baldwin as part of the discussion today. We still have a lot of educational policies that are stuck in an archetype of an old way where career and technical education was kind of second class. I'm going to give you two examples, one of which we've got legislation to try to tackle. If you're active duty military, I have a son who's an infantry commander in the Marine Corps, you get a tuition assistance benefit. And if you say, hey, I'd like to do this course of study, and your commander says that's relevant, you can get it up to $4,500 a year. Has to be at a community college or college. So say your military MOS, occupational specialty, is ordnance, and you've had metalworking and welding training in that specialty, and you say to your CO, I don't need $4,500. Give me $300 so I can pass the American Welding Society certification exam. Sorry, you can't do that. The military tuition assistance program was set up with kind of a stereotype that college was high quality and other things weren't. And that's actually, you know, you pass the AWS certification, you can take that at Fort Lee and move to, in Virginia, and move to Portland tomorrow. People know what that certification is. They might or might not know about the community college where you attended and got a semester of coursework. The second area where, and this is one that we're trying to solve the first one through the NDAA process, but the second area where we need legislation is a bill that we have in called the Jobs Act, Jumpstart Our Businesses. And the Jobs Act basically goes into the Pell Grant program. Now, here's what Pell Grants do. You income qualify for a Pell Grant, that's great, but the course has to be 14 weeks long, the length of a traditional college semester. Well, what about a high-quality, super intense, 8 hours a day, 8-week-long course, which is more common if you get into some specialized career and technical training? Sorry, you can't get a Pell Grant for that. I mean, even if it's fully accredited, even if it's in a skill area where there are jobs in your community that need you, sorry, it's not a college semester, so you can't get a Pell Grant for it. So we're trying to change the Pell Grant to allow, in this Jobs Act, is to allow Pell Grant to be used if students' income qualify for high-quality CTE. Part of what we need to do is advance, and part of what we need to do is to go into old policies where there is this kind of a second-class notion about CTE and just clear away some of the obstruction or old thinking about CTE. And that's why we have this caucus. The caucus is to encourage the president to do things, and we've worked very well with the administration. It's to do legislation. A number of pieces of legislation that were introduced from the caucus got rolled into ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, and we're going to work on Perkins. But the other thing we want to do is just educate folks around here so that all of our staffs, and you know, your guys are the brains of the operation, so that you can be thinking of ideas. And I know that you're going to hear something today from these employer reps about their particular experiences in tackling workforce challenges that will give you some ideas. I'm kind of particularly happy because there is one of the guys you're going to hear from that I invited, which is Ed Dalrymple. Ed has a fascinating story about asphalt paving and the lack of trained people in the asphalt paving world and the way they're dealing with that, which is, hey, we just passed a big transportation bill. We're going to be doing a lot of road construction out of this transportation bill for the next 5 years, but we don't necessarily have the workforce to do it. How is this industry tackling that problem? You'll hear that story and other great stories in the panel, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Thanks so much, and thanks for doing this. Thanks for participating.
Thank you, Senator.
Sure.
Thank you
bet.
so much.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah, a standing room only room and a senator with passion. It's a good combination. Why don't some of you who are standing, there are seats at the table over there, and there's some seats here. Please don't stand unless you want to. So let's go straight to the panel, and I'm going to introduce them as I turn to them. I'm going to do this kind of, TV talk show style, asking questions of the panelists. So Dan, let's start with you. You're the former VP of Human Resources, now a consultant for the Nexen Group. It's a small advanced manufacturing company in western Wisconsin, small town, situation, high schools, companies. I know you spend a lot of your time out and about getting the word out about CTE. Why is it important for employers to do that? Why is that a role for employers, and how do you do it?
Okay.
I'm going to paint a little picture, if I can,
Please.
to begin with. We're a company of 125 employees in a town of about 800 people. We were named Business of the Year for Northwest Wisconsin in 2012 by Workforce Development. So we do good things. Career and technical education is vitally important to us, and I'm going to give the company perspective, but there's such an intersection with it's important to us, it's important to our community, it's important to our economy, it's important to our schools, and most importantly, it's important to the students that are part of that. But what I want to make the point of is that technology has changed all the rules for everything. It has changed the rules for careers. And so we're a company of machinists and engineers. And people have their own perspectives of what machining is about, but let me tell you what machining is like. We have 80 CNC machines in our plant, computer numerical controlled machines, very accurate, very precise equipment that cost up to $1 million a piece. We're getting 2 more in 2 weeks. Of those types of equipment, we made a prototype part the other day that if we printed out the paper, the program in hard copy, that program would be 500 pages long for the program for one part. We have equipment that is so precise that it's accurate to 1 micron. That's 1/40 millionth of an inch. That's the size of a single bacterium. And so after we're done, if a piece of dust falls on the part, it's out of tolerance. And so you're not supposed to argue with the moderator, but we don't call them middle skills jobs. We call them gold collar careers. And so we need highly skilled folks. There's a Fortune 500 company not very far from us that competes for the same talent as we do, and they told us it can take them up to a year to find a qualified CNC machinist. I don't tell them my secrets. We still get all the ones we need, but it's precisely because of our partnerships with schools. It's precisely because of our partnerships with tech ed teachers. It's precisely because we browbeat superintendents and principals to come into our plant. In fact, we have them bring the entire K-12 faculty and staff to see what we do and see what kind of jobs. Our machinists make the same pay as teachers with master's degrees.
What's that? What do they make?
About $60,000, $65,000 a year. 2-year degree. Fresh out of school with zero experience, they start at between $45,000 and $50,000 a year, and they go up. Our chief operating officer, second highest position in the plant, started with a 2-year machine tool degree. And so there's not only where you start and what you do, but where you can go. And so I'll try to not belabor the point, but here's the problem. And it crushes our soul. We see really, really, really good people that want work to raise families, to be integral parts of the fabric of our communities that we can't hire. And we can't hire them because we can't put them on a $1 million machine and have them start punching buttons and hope for the best. They've got to have the skills to do that. In order for them to do that, they have got to go to the school. And in order for them to go to school, they have to be aware that these jobs exist. In order for them to be aware that jobs exist, they have to see them in our schools with decent equipment, with partnerships with business. And we were interviewing a tech college president one time, and we said, how can we do better at matching this up, the skills gap? How can we close the gap? Because we've got all these great people that want to work, we've got these great jobs, but we can't hire them. And he said, and he was doing some work on this, and he says, you know, first of all, you have to show them what a good job looks like, because they have not seen that. They've seen one minimum wage job after another, one bounce paycheck after another, one layoff after another, and they don't know. And they don't know the path to get there. And CTE, we've seen have a great perspective of that. I'll say one last thing. Our Secretary of Superintendent, State Superintendent Tony Evers just wrote an editorial for CTE month, and he said something that I didn't realize. And he said, students that take tech ed classes have higher graduation rates than the general population. And so there's a multitude of things. And one last thing, they teach soft skills better than anybody else we see in the schools. And that is, every employer wants soft skills.
So quick follow-up. So you talked about the role of employers. We want to focus on the role of employers. A lot of what you do is doing what you just did, which is telling us why it's important and showing the kids the jobs. Can you tick off another checklist, sort of employer 101 of what else employers do?
Here's my slide. I show this to other employers and say, we've been doing this for years, and we put a slide up when we have anyone come to our company, our vendors, our customers, our business, because community matters a ton to us. We're small town Wisconsin. And so we just do all this stuff because that's our neighbors. The educators teach our sons and daughters of our employees and our future workforce. We start with kindergarten and pre-kindergarten tours of our plant. We have to buy smaller safety glasses for them so they can get in the building. We have our engineers go in and teach classes on what advanced manufacturing looks like to third graders. Amazing. We talk about job-seeking skills. We have written our 10 commandments of career success that talks about the soft skills. Show up, work hard, play together nice in the sandbox, keep learning, be a problem solver, support the company you work for. We've got this, and we have teachers that have this blown up on poster-sized things in their classrooms in tech ed, and they point to the students every day and say, this is what matters in industry. We donate equipment. We work with 5 different school districts in tech ed up to 125 miles away. And it is that important to us, and we see such tremendous educators doing this kind of thing. We have student internships, we do scholarships, we are on advisory committees, we donate equipment, we have teachers come and work with our high-tech equipment so that they can learn this. We have students come in and do things that they can't do in their own classrooms because they don't have the equipment, that's why they use ours.
Okay, fantastic. We'll come back to you. It's not the end. Jamie, so now you're going to see very different sectors and very different kinds of companies. We're moving from relatively small company to international giant. Jamie von Voorhis is the Senior Manager of Workforce Development at Jacobs Engineering. So Jamie, you're Jacobs Engineering, plant company with an international footprint. He'll tell us how big. Jacobs just got a WIOA grant. How amazing is that? These people just put away their files on WIOA a few days ago. And I'm sure they're going to be kind of interested in hearing how WIOA is playing out on the ground. Love to hear more about Jacobs and about the WIOA grant.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tamar. As Tamar mentioned,
Jacobs is one of the largest and most diverse construction and engineering companies in the world. We work on aerospace, we work on telecommunication, pharmaceuticals. We do a lot of refinery petrochemical work, as well as transportation. So we're a very diverse group, over 70,000 employees worldwide, annual revenue in the $12 billion a year range. As it relates to this WIOA grant, which was very interesting, we were intrigued when we started looking at the new language and it talking about how much more employer-centric that WIOA was becoming from the former act. We started with a roundtable with Opportunity America to really get down in the weeds and recognize what would work and what wouldn't work. That led us to a number of local meetings in the Houston, Galveston area, and we were given the first WIOA grant in the Houston, Galveston area to train a craft skill workforce to do both incumbent training and to do new hire training that we termed Jacobs Jumpstart. And the mission for Jacobs Jumpstart was to find people in the local area that had not been able to find their way into our industry but had interest. They wanted to get in, provide them 45 hours of pre-hire training, includes math skills, which are tremendously important in what we do, safety, power tools, hand tools, blueprints, rigging, ultimately leading to a nationally recognized and industry recognized credential. And those successful completers are then promised a career with Jacobs, promised the job upon successful completion. We did this in collaboration with Lee College, who provided us the access to the lab space, which was a tremendous benefit for us. The reason we did it was a couple of key points. The first is we wanted to see if this employer-centric language was indeed a fact. And we found out that it was. They were happy to have this conversation with us, saw what we had built, our programs and processes with both the Jumpstart and the incumbent side, and said, this is exactly what we want to use WIOA for. So we were able to showcase that this does work. The second piece is scalability. What we did as a single organization, and we're all going to, at some point in this day, talking about the huge needs that we all have for skilled craft professionals in our various industries. We have a tremendous shortage in our industry, and it's only getting worse. So we have to be aware of taking advantage of opportunities in workforce development to collaborate with our competitors. I always tell everybody, we'll compete at bid time, but somebody's going to win the work. So we need to have the skilled workforce that can go do it, because the worst thing can happen to us, and it's happened, is very significant projects are postponed or worse yet, canceled entirely, due in large part to the perception from the owner that the skilled workforce isn't there to complete on time and on budget.
So spell out that bigger vision. So you've got, it's you and there are other companies, and you have a vision of a pipeline where you're training at the beginning and you're training in the middle and people are moving up and backfilling. Give us that big vision.
Absolutely. Well, our big vision, and it starts with programs like Jumpstart, it starts in collaboration with career and tech education and bringing those entry-level and semi-skilled individuals. What's very clear to us is we have to have a pipeline of entry-level. You can't find journey-level skills to fill projects. Not when everybody has work. The numbers just don't meet it. They're talking shortages of 1.5 million craft professionals in the next 6 years. So we have to have a pipeline where we can find interested individuals that are going to come into our industry and are going to progress to a minimum of journey level skills. So we can continue to backfill the pipeline. We can't have helpers that are happy coming onto our projects being helpers their entire career. They're clogging up our pipeline. Our leadership is nearing retirement. Our journeymen are aging. These are jobs and skills that take years to learn. It's not weeks and months. So we have to start now, get ourselves ahead of the calendar, and have these skills being crossed into the next generation so we can continue to fill the pipe and meet the need.
Perfect. We'll come back to you. Don't go away.
Okay.
Carol, so now we're going to another big company. I grew up in New York, Con Ed. It was like the name of a street or many streets. Carol is Director of Public Affairs for Queens for Con Edison, which, of those of you who aren't from New York, it's the big energy utility, and it does even more than that. They run a fantastic school in New York, or partner on a fantastic school, which I've been inside of. So Carol, in your case, I'm going to start with the why, right? So Con Edison sponsors an early college high school in New York. Tell us briefly tell us about the company, tell us a little bit what's an early college high school, and then tell us why is Con Ed involved in this?
Sure. So I just want to first thank you on behalf of Con Edison for allowing us to speak today, but I know our partners are also very excited that we're here. So Consolidated Edison of New York provides gas, electric, and steam to over 3 million customers in New York City and Westchester County. So we have a workforce of 15,000 employees that provide these services to a population of 10 million people in only 660 miles. So just giving you an enormity of our business. Energy Tech is a high school that's located in Long Island City, Queens, and you want to know about the why. So our story really begins with a business need, and it's really morphed into some endless opportunities. But Energy Tech was the result of a partnership when the Department of Education in New York City came to us and asked if we would be interested in helping create this new school that was going to be based on STEM education. And we looked at it from a business perspective. We needed a pipeline. Our electrical engineering department, our design engineering department found that 80% of the applicants and the candidates who were coming in who had associate's degrees in electric and mechanical engineering, 80% were failing the aptitude test for these entry-level jobs. And so we agreed to partner with the City of New York, with the Department of Ed in the creation of this, which also partners with our city university system through LaGuardia Community College and National Grid, which also provides gas service in parts of New York City. So after 2 years of working on curriculum for the school, Energy Tech opened its doors in 2013. Now it's a 9 to 14 grades where the students, after they reach their high school graduation, they have the opportunity to continue to get an associate's degree in applied sciences through LaGuardia Community College for grades 13 and 14. But they never really leave the school. I mean, physically, they will take courses at the college, but they also will still be under the guidance and the mentorship of not only the high school, but also Con Edison and National Grid. We have really worked hard to create the curriculum not only for the high school, but as you heard, the curriculum with the associate's degree, it wasn't in today's market. So we worked over the last 3 years with the City University to change that curriculum. And just recently, the curriculum was approved, but I will tell you that 60% of the coursework was changed. So that will give you an idea in terms of how that curriculum really needed to be changed to meet the needs of today's marketplace.
Well, how did that happen? Like, what kind of meetings? Was that like ongoing meetings for
Well,
months?
you know, we worked with all department managers and really our subject matter experts in terms of what was needed for today, what was needed for these candidates to pass the aptitude test. You know, what is needed in today's workplace. So that was a basis, and our subject matter experts really were dedicated to help create that, not only for the high school, but for also the college. We also train the teachers. The teachers, we've created what we call externships. for the teachers in the high school where they have the opportunity, they will spend a day at various departments of the company looking to better understand the careers that are out there so that they can relate it back to the classroom, as you pointed out, but also to understand, there's a difference in teaching writing and mathematics in a general sense versus when you're teaching it for a technical manual. So that is a part of what we do. We have 10 mentors that on a monthly basis, and they're younger engineering graduates that are recent to the company. They will mentor these students in the high school, but not only about technical engineering, but also, as you pointed out, some of the softer skills that are needed in today's education. Leadership skills, teamwork. Also, how do you interview for a job, and those opportunities. So even if these students after high school chose not, for whatever reason, to go on to their associate's degree, they are marketable for other types of positions. This summer will be the junior class will be eligible for summer internships at the company, and that we hope as they move into the college level in 2 more years, they will also have the opportunity for some cooperative working environments.
Great. You preempted my second question, so we'll come back to you. So now we're moving again from big companies back to smaller companies. I shouldn't say that because it sounds like kind of a big company to me, but it's small by relationship to Jacobs and Con Ed. So Ed Dalrymple is president of the Cedar Mountain Stone Corporation and the Chemung Contracting Corporation. They do paving and construction in New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. And and the senator is here. So please, Senator, please. It's a perfect moment. It's a perfect moment for you. Thank you so much. No, but well, I'm introducing them as they speak. Please join us. No, Senator Portman from Ohio. Thank you so much.
Thanks for Patel being here, too. So here are the numbers from Ohio this morning. Ohio means jobs. You can go online and see this. 173,787 jobs are open in Ohio this morning. And yet we have 269,000 people unemployed in Ohio. Part of that gap is the skills gap. If you look at these jobs, if you look at Ohio means jobs and see what's open, and some of you are going to talk about this, I imagine, you probably have some openings in some of your businesses that require people that have skills. Maybe in Ohio, a machinist or a welder, maybe it's a coder if you're in the healthcare area. But we're not providing our young people with the skills they need to be able to get these jobs. And when we do that, actually, it works really well. And the best way to do it, obviously, is to have the private sector involved in the process, both in terms of designing the curriculum so it ends up being something valuable for that region and for the jobs that are available, but also so that young people can get these opportunities to experience work. Whether you call it an apprenticeship program or a co-op program or an internship program, doesn't really matter. The point is getting them in the workplace, showing them what the work involves, hopefully getting them excited and interested in it, and also allowing those employers to have a look at those individuals so that when they graduate, they can find some good people to fill these jobs that are wanting right now in my state. So it's a win-win for the economy to be able to fill these jobs and ensure that we can keep businesses that are good paying. In my case, again, Ohio, a lot of manufacturing jobs are open. And then second, of course, it's a great opportunity for these young people, some of whom are looking as an alternative of going to 2- or 4-year college and maybe pursuing something that their parents might have as their dream for them, but maybe not being the right fit for them. For some people, it's great, but for others, getting out of school with an average of a $27,000 debt and not getting a job that matches their degree, that's about half the kids who are graduating these days from colleges and universities. It might have been better had they chosen another track. Doesn't mean they don't go back to school, because many of them can go back to school. Our legislation provides Pell Grants, as you know, for CTE training. We think that's important. It also helps, we have legislation to help early college, high schools to be able to get some more degrees, not just when you are going through the traditional route, but maybe getting some credit while you're in a CTE program or in high school, and then building on that over time. In Ohio, we do permit, our CTE programs do permit you to get college credit while you're in a CTE program. And I'm sure you all know, but you've talked to young people who get out and then they end up spending some time working, but maybe go back to school and maybe get an associate degree or bachelor's degree. Or one young man I talked to, he's 19 years old, he's making $50,000 a year, he's running a machine, he's very happy. He's got some credits from his CTE program. By the way, to go back to your high school and talk to some of the juniors and seniors about this as an alternative. And he wants to get a master's degree in engineering at some point, and I think he will. But in the meantime, he can buy a house, he can buy a car, he can start his family. So anyway, thank you all for being here and sharing your experiences and helping us to be able to be sure we have that mesh between the private sector and the program, so we can close this skills gap and begin to help move our economy forward at a time when we have historically weak recovery on our hands. I just got out of a hearing where we were talking about the economy. It grew at 0.7% last quarter, as you know, and 2.2, 2.3% growth the last 2 years, and the projections that we heard were this year that we're in is likely to be lower than that. And one of the problems is, the fact that we're not providing these skilled workers for an economy that needs them to be able to grow. And finally, what a great opportunity for some of these young people. So thank you very much. Hope I didn't interrupt for too long. Really appreciate everybody being here and everybody involved with the CTE Caucus. We want to continue to provide this back and forth and promote our, ultimately some legislative goals like the Jobs Act, educating tomorrow's workforce. So thank you for your work on those legislative pieces as well.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, so we'll resume with Ed Dalrymple, who's still the president of two construction companies that work in New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Go for it. So Ed, tell us, you have, you run, for a small company, amazing, you run an apprenticeship program.
Yes.
Tell us about that program. Tell us about the company and tell us about that program.
Well, the company has a need, as Senator Kaine said, Virginia passed a transportation program, and that gave us a need for new employees to be both plant operators, technicians out on jobs, electricians in quarries, mechanics, maintenance people like that. And we also had a need because our workforce was aging. My master electrician, the lead electrician for my quarry and everything is 78 years old. I kind of think he may want to retire at some point. I'm not sure when. He worked 3,000 hours last year. My one senior plant operator is 74 years old. So I have an aging workforce. We reached out to the high school and tried to hire some kids out of high school. I refer to them as farmers because in our business, farmers have always been a good core to go to. They understand working and the ethics of working around machines. The kids I offered jobs to turned me down. They didn't want to work that many hours, and they didn't want to have to work to get dirty and work that hard. So I realized I had a problem. Meanwhile, Continental Tevis, Euro Composite, and Bingham Taylor Foundry and Culpeper had an apprenticeship program or workforce program that they had put together with a local Germanic community college. And as I started looking at that program, we realized that we could take and adapt portions of that program to meet our needs. We actually worked with VDOT, our transportation group, with the Virginia Employment Commission and Germanic Community College to take and put together accredited programs by the Department of Labor in which we have apprentices that are now working to this day. Right now they're working, and we're continuing to hire them. We have 5 in place right now. We'll have 8 in place before summer.
And what do they make when they, as apprentices? And when
The starting wage we had them assigned to was $35,000 for the first year. The first apprentice that came to work and worked about a little over half a year made $34,000. So they're going to make the $35,000 to start with. when they graduate from a program, the program's a 4-year program, they're going to be making $100,000. They will also have an associate's degree, and they will have the ability to transfer and go on and go to a 4-year college and receive a bachelor's degree if they want to. Quite honestly, if you like what we do and you enjoy what you do, as you go up and become a journeyman or somebody that really understands how to operate these plants and how to make everything run, you enjoy that life, and you don't need to go anyplace else. You'll stay there. Most of our employees, we've had employees that have worked for our company for 50, 55 years. We've had 3 generations that have worked for the company at the same time. It's been a good, steady business.
And Ed, how did you pick apprenticeship? I mean, obviously there are many training options. That's the biggest ticket item. 4 years, it's costly for each apprentice. How did you choose?
Well, it allowed us to train the people. We put a mentor with every apprentice, and that mentor is working with that person every day and make sure that there's still a person out there working just like anybody else, but they're being trained. And that allowed us to bring them into what we thought a worker needed to be. If I go out and recruit somebody from one of my competitors and bring them in, I have to then train that person in the way that I work. And there's a difference between every company. And the apprenticeship program and the mentoring program made it work. The other thing we do is when we go and try to hire somebody from somebody else, I hire a person that's called a recruiter. And that recruiter, when he gets somebody that fits into my organization, I'll traditionally pay $30,000 for that person to come to work, to the recruiter. I won't pay $30,000 for the community college programs that they go through over the 4 years. And I'll have employees that'll be learning something. And the fun part is, especially an electrician, electrical skills, the young man works with my 78-year-old master electrician, very smart, knows everything that there is to know. The young man goes to school and he comes back with drawings and he shows it to the 78-year-old. And he says, look at what we could do if we use this, or this is what we can do when we play with the PLCs if we make an adjustment. It's going both ways.
That's great. So we'll come back to you. Jeff Geppert, I love your title. You're the research leader at the Battelle Memorial Institute in Columbus, Ohio. Battelle's a huge R&D operation. I don't quite understand it, but it's the world. It calls itself the world's largest nonprofit R&D organization. Works on everything from pharmaceuticals to national security, and you're playing a leading role in the state. Why don't you start by telling us about writing curricula? You helped write curricula for the state's vocational technical centers. Let's start with that.
Good afternoon. I'm actually just got promoted to senior research leader.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's not a reflection of my age. At Battelle Memorial Institute. And as Tamara mentioned, Battelle, it's the world's largest independent research and development organization. There are about 22,000 employees, 60 locations worldwide. We conduct contract research in consumer industrial products and energy environment and health and analytics and pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and national security. We also manage national labs on behalf of the federal government. So Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee, Brookhaven, Lawrence Livermore are some of the labs that Battelle manages. Battelle is sort of best known for a couple of innovations of the office photocopier was developed at Battelle. The CD-ROM and the barcode are 3 of our contributions to humanity. But what's cool about those innovations is because it reflects exactly what we've been talking about today. It's a combination of sort of deep scientific understanding, but also technical know-how. You have to know how to build stuff if you're going to develop something like the photocopier. So Battelle is also a nonprofit charitable trust, and therefore we actually devote about 20% of our net income to philanthropic causes. And in recent years, that is pretty much focused on STEM education and career and technical education. We do start schools, and we can get into that a little bit, and our experience in starting a high school and middle school and the brand new school, which is called Metro Institute of Technology, MIT, if you've ever heard of that. So our support for STEM and our support for STE supports our mission. And in order to be a leading cutting-edge research and development organization, we obviously need a highly trained workforce. We also need highly trained customers, because we need people who can appreciate what we do and can work with us on developing some of these innovations. The senator mentioned sort of job openings, and I happen to pull up sort of our job openings as of this morning, and there's over 50 of them that are listed, and it's all sorts of HVAC technician, laboratory technician, veterinary technician. My favorite is anthropomorphic test device engineer, which is a crash test dummy engineer. But we blow a lot of stuff up at Battelle, basically. So in addition to schools and employment, Battelle does support CT through the development of curriculum. And we worked with the Ohio Association of Career and Technical Superintendents on a curriculum in health informatics. And so why health informatics? Well, for one thing, there's just a lot of jobs in health informatics. As we all know, medicine is becoming more and more electronic, moving to electronic health records, and we need health informaticians to fill those roles. And there's really no place to go and learn how to do this. It was really sort of a gap in sort of our educational offerings. And so it met a very specific need in our economy. It also met a need for the vocational centers, which is they wanted to be able to develop more curriculum that incorporated academic components. And so they wanted to be able to train people to do these technical careers, but they wanted more of an academic flavor to it, more project-based, more open-ended inquiry, that type of thing. And so this was a collaboration with a group called the Southern Regional Education Board, who actually goes around state by state to develop these kinds of curriculums. And they always pick a topic that's particularly relevant in the state. In West Virginia, it was energy. In Alabama, it was aerospace. And in Ohio, we could have picked soybeans, but we picked health informatics. And it was a very rigorous process. It was going to be a 4-year process. It was going to be developed in phases with very rigorous evaluation. And it was going to sort of meet this need of training people towards a health informatics career. The challenge was that it was hard to define. The first sessions that we had was actually, what is health informatics? And we couldn't agree on a definition. So that doesn't bode well, but that's sort of typical of a lot of these areas. Is they're sort of hard to define sometimes. It's hard to, you can kind of, some jobs you can just see, but a lot of these jobs that are necessary in these technical careers are a little hard to get your arms around. And then the second problem is it was the pathways weren't all that well defined. And so, you really do need sort of very step by step, this credential builds on this credential, builds on this credential, and all of that, might lead to a bachelor's degree that, might lead to a job in programming. It really needs to be very sort of clearly spelled out. Otherwise, the students are challenged in sort of getting engaged and excited about pursuing, a 4-year curriculum. They want to know that it's going to lead to something specific at the end.
So there's so much I want to ask you about that, but I know you have another big thing to tell us about, which is your regional planning. So why don't you talk about that too, and then we'll have some questions for everyone.
Right. So the challenges that we had associated with the curriculum development sort of really kind of led to this Ohio Association to ask the bigger question about where are we headed as a vocational programs and as a vocational system in the state of Ohio. So they started what was called the Vision 2020 initiative. And the goal of the Vision 2020 initiative was to develop some near-term strategic priorities for the 49 vocational centers in the state of Ohio. And so we convened a planning committee of about 25 individuals with representatives from industry, so like construction and health informatics and financial services. And JP Morgan Chase, by the way, has been sort of very active in this area and really promoting this idea of middle skill jobs in Ohio. And then we had educators, and then we had policymakers. So getting all sort of the stakeholders together. The process was basically to get together initially to sort of agree on what the problems were, and then we convened a larger stakeholder group where we brought in additional representatives from industry and additional representatives from the vocational centers to brainstorm on possible solutions to those challenges. And then the third part of the process is to sort of synthesize all that and prioritize, and that's actually happening today. So I'm here. I'll have to follow up with them later, but they're happy that I'm here. So some of the lessons that have come out of this process really kind of resonate with what we've been talking about already. Is there is this discrepancy between the perspective of the employers, who emphasize that they need work-ready employees. They put a big emphasis on work-ready employees that are, trained and available for these jobs. Conversely, the educators repeatedly emphasize the lament the sort of public perception of the inferiority or second-tier status of CTE, and the challenges that brings with recruiting enough students and sort of convincing their families to let their students participate in these vocational center programs. And the educators did express some frustration with what the Senator was mentioning earlier, with this constant national discourse about everyone going to college and free college, which they don't feel is really reflective of the realities of their student population or with the employment marketplace. And so there does need to be sort of a recasting of sort of the nature of the discussion. So where I come sort of down on this is that employers have a role in helping to articulate the value of CTE. In short, it's not academics or CTE, it's academics and CTE. I'm telling you that many of the young statisticians and engineers that we hire with bachelor's and master's and PhDs struggle with basic problem-defining, problem-solving skills, these sort of softer skills that we discuss. And they would benefit from more exposure to the type of problem-oriented education that CTE provides. It's interesting that liberal arts colleges like Middlebury in Vermont are starting entrepreneurship programs, which is sort of a fancy liberal arts term for vocational education. Medical schools like Hofstra in New York are bringing their first and second year medical students out of the classroom and putting them into care settings. Simply a recognition that healthcare is becoming more and more, of a career, technical, vocational type of profession. Battelle, our motto is sort of the business of innovation. And for us, innovation is when inspiration meets execution. And so our recommendation to students and their families today, regardless of what their pathway is, that they should consider educational pathways that incorporate elements of both academics and CTE. And that's a message that we as employers can help articulate.
Yeah, that's great. And I love your phrase about the role of, one of the big roles of employers is to articulate the value of CTE. So let's go to what's hard about it. And now, no particular order, anyone can jump in. So going back to my silly phrase about employers are from Mars, educators are from Venus, you're on the employer side. What's your advice to an educator that wants to partner with an employer? Not what's your advice yet to other businesses. What's your advice to educators? What's your best tip for how to bridge that gap? And anybody can jump in. Okay.
I might as well give my quote.
Go for it.
So we get together with educators all the time in these meetings. Businesses get together with educators, and we all talk. We moan our hands and talk about the skills gap. You heard heresy. Business is turning away business and money because of the skills gap. And so we talk about somebody should do something, and point fingers. And then they say, well, let's do something. And they put together committees and come up with real complicated things and websites that become quickly out of date and contact lists that aren't real and da-da-da-da. So I'm at a meeting like that, and they're going through all that. I was the keynoter, and I wasn't going to be on that other I wasn't part of the next stuff to come, so I wanted to short stop that. So I gave them my toolkit for building partnerships, 3 steps. Step 1, leave your building. Step 2, go to their building. Step 3, start the conversation by saying, you're important to me because. We have seen that happen time after time after time, where we just have a wound-up tech educator that comes to tour our plant, or that we go to a superintendent and say, you're important to us, come visit us and see what this looks like. We need to get in each other's space. That's where it starts. And by the way, when that happens, I mean, it's a good thing the local authorities aren't around, because these teachers walk out with all kinds of tooling and materials with permission. But by simply meeting somebody, you go, well, let's help you. Here's some stuff. And it's as simple as that. Leave your building.
Great.
I would like to add to that. I think it's engagement. I think what we have seen with Energy Tech is that the teachers are, one, they're just as engaged and excited about learning as the students are. So as I mentioned before, we have these externships where the teachers go out to different, not only Con Edison, but other different companies that have technology jobs. So they want to understand so they can bring it back to the students whom they're passionate about, to teach them better, to make it more relevant to what today's society is. And the same thing on the college level. I mean, our city university really engaged with us in terms of trying to get underneath, you know, if you're having an 80% of your candidates fill this aptitude test and they have associate's degree, something is wrong. Something's seriously wrong. And so, again, it's that engagement, and it's working with subject matter experts to understand what is relevant, what is necessary, and how are these students going to be able to achieve. We have found with even our job shadowing program that we do, the teachers come with the students. So they also get to understand, not only do they have their externships, but the teachers go on the job shadowing programs as well. So they bring that excitement back into the classroom.
I'm hearing actually an echo of Dan, get out of the building, but also understand what's relevant. Who else wants to jump in on this? Yes, please. Mr. Gallagher.
The one thing that we've done is start to bring people into our industry, bring them out for tours, bring them out to the quarry, show them how the quarry operates, how the equipment operates, how blacktop's made, the components it's made out of, how we use things like drones to monitor our blast. And then we always finish it up with a nice 30,000-ton blast, which everybody always remembers. It's the one way to recruit new help. But it's to understand how our industry works. And what are we all trying to do? We're trying to build better things that will last longer. If we have the right workforce, we can build the quality of the product that we need for our infrastructure that we all use to last longer.
Great. Jamie, do you want to jump in on the advice to the educators?
Yeah, briefly, because we're so diversified, a lot of our conversations are not only at the local level, but at the state and federal level. And, you know, what we say a lot of times is that, you know, even though in DC, the Department of Education is blocks from the Department of Labor, they're still worlds apart. Because 27% of the workforce needs a traditional four-year college degree. So we have to have an understanding that there are tremendous opportunities with great wages, wonderful careers in that 67% of the rest of the, if my math was better.
Sorry, we get the idea.
In the rest of the opportunities out there. And so there are too many systems that are saying everybody should go to college, but that's not where the jobs are. So we need to align education with what the true careers are, so we don't have the gap like the senator from Ohio said, when we've got nearly 200,000 openings and 250,000 people on unemployment.
You want to jump into this, Jeff? Or you? And the idea is, you know, what advice from the employer side of the table to educators who want to engage but don't know where to start?
Well, I think one thing educators can do is they need to sort of engage in a little bit of professional development. Because Teacher training tends to be sort of very, sort of content-based. You learn your subject matter, and your standards are oriented around your subject matter. But a lot of the sort of teaching approaches, which come more from engineering-type disciplines and involve things like design cycles and mastery and things, sort of concepts that are a little bit foreign. I think just in order to gain some comfort with these methods of teaching, and I think that'll open up some opportunities, to engage in this type of learning.
That's great, that's great. So, when I go and visit programs, I feel like the pinnacle of employer-educator engagement is when the kids actually get into the workplace, right? And see what it's like to hold a job and feel like, I won't say feel like a man, but feel like an adult because they can do a job and get recognition from peers and mentors. Tell us about what your companies do to get people into the workplace and how that works and what the effect is like. And anybody can jump in. Go for it.
The best thing we do, the absolute best thing we do, is have entire K-12 faculty and staff come to our building. Bus drivers, kindergarten teachers, everybody. For a couple reasons. People like to point fingers at guidance counselors and say they're not doing a good enough job on being guidance counselors. And I say they're the busiest people around, trying to keep kids from committing suicide and doing other kinds of things. And I also say, you know how many people guide students on careers in schools? All of the staff. The cross-country coach, the English teacher, the math teacher, the conversations in the hallways where the career counseling takes place. And when we get K-12 faculty and staff, and at first the elementary teachers are like, what are we coming to a manufacturing firm for? And when they leave, they're walking 5 feet off the ground going, my God, I've never seen technology like that. And so the best thing we do is get them all in the room. And I'll give you the counter to that. The hardest thing for businesses is going into the classrooms. I mean, it's a humbling experience to see what educators face, a class of seniors, and trying to engage them and connect with them. And so it takes practice, and that's why businesses kind of pull back, because they do it. It's like, oh, God, that hurt.
People are scared of
They're scared, and it's difficult, but it gets better with practice, and you learn how to hone your message, and you learn what connects with them, and you get better at that. And now our employees, they love going, and so we don't have a hard time getting volunteers. Our engineers are happy to go out and do this kind of thing, but you have to face your demons.
Okay, but I want that's good, and that's really helpful. Somebody talked to me about work-based learning, actual on-the-job learning. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I mentioned at the school that Patel is involved in, called the Metro Institute of Technology, and it's actually a 5-year high school, and at the end of it, you actually earn an associate's degree and a certification in a particular technical discipline, and so it has a very sort of staged process where your career exploration and your pathways initially are sort of focused within the high school. So your teacher provides you with exposure to different career planning tools. Battelle supports a STEM learning network in the state of Tennessee, and they have a software program, a website that students can go to, and it's very engaging, interactive, and explore different types of potential careers, but it's mostly within the school. And then it's in the third year of high school, then it starts transitioning to more of the workplace learning. And so they have various employers around downtown Columbus that will take the students in and give them a real world work experience. And of course, this is tremendously exciting to the students. They just can't believe it that they get out of class to do this. And then the career.
It's for a summer or for it's a few weeks? How does it work?
It's actually during school.
Okay.
Cristo Rey, I don't know if you're familiar with those. So they're actually right next door, and their students actually spend a day a week out of the classroom working for a financial services firm or a law firm or an accounting firm, and that actually helps offset the cost of their tuitions. So that's another sort of innovative model that seems to work pretty well. And then in the third and fourth year of high schools, then the career career exploration is more driven on the community college side. So there's sort of a transition. You're still kind of in the safe environment of a high school, but you're going from sort of teachers and their experience to now you're working with faculty at a college and getting their perspectives on what the opportunities are. So it's a nice sort of transitionary model.
So Ed, tell us about how your apprentices combine being in a classroom and being on the job.
Well, our apprentice program, they work all day on the job, and then on usually Fridays or nights they'll go to a course. It may be a course on quality control, maybe on English, math. It'll be on all the skills and things that they need for better education in the workplace. And their classes are a condition of their employment. I think that's one important thing we have is one of my first apprentices said, gee, he really liked the work and everything, didn't know why he needed to go to this class thing. He could just plain work. But we don't allow that to happen. It is a condition of their employment. So if they decide that they don't want to be a part of the program, they don't have a job. It's just that simple. And I think that's a big thing to do to them so that they stay committed to the whole program.
Jamie, Carol, you want to jump in?
Yeah, we utilize NCCER as our nationally recognized industry certification. Fortunately, so do a lot of the secondary and post-secondary career and tech programs that are out in the U.S. So we do a lot of our recruiting directly from those career and tech programs and are able to capture those semi-skilled. And because we are speaking the same language of industry recognized credentials, we then work on a stackable credential plan and let them continue with our workforce development programs that are kind of built from hire to retire. So they can come in, we know exactly where they left off and continue to guide them down their career path up through journey and into leadership.
So there are other direct services that we provide to the school in terms of how we integrate them into our business. We have done case studies with the students on real-life business issues. So just like last week, several of our engineers worked with students and the college to install some photovoltaic panels, solar panels on the school, so that they had a case study. And so we integrate that. We've sponsored for the school to participate in the first robotics competition, and our engineers engage them and work with them in the shop and building the robotics. But there's one aspect of the job shadowing I just want to share with a young lady that went through the program. She's in 11th grade now. When she was in 9th grade and she first entered the school, after about 2 weeks in the school, she wanted to be transferred. She wanted no part of it. She wanted to get out. So there was a lot of intervention on behalf of the school, and they also worked with us as their partner in engaging her with some mentors, some female mentors, engineers that could talk to her about careers, talk to her about other opportunities. At the same time, she was put into the job shadowing program. And it's not always those best students that get to go to job shadowing. It's usually the students that the teachers feel maybe need a little more participation, a little more engagement, and she went through that. She's in 11th grade. She has completed some college courses. She's taking more this spring. She wants to know if she can graduate early because she wants to graduate early so she can take more college courses. But one thing about this individual that was when she was in 8th grade, she was at the lowest level of her aptitude tests in both math and English. And now she can't wait to go to continue in this program. So that job shadowing program we felt really helped in her engagement and excitement about understanding what her opportunity may be.
Great story, great story. Questions? I can go on asking questions all day, but I'm guessing some of you have some as well. Please, and tell us who you are. Stand up, please, because it's true, we don't have a microphone to bring you. And talk, I suppose speak loud, because we don't have a microphone. I'm worried they can't hear you on the live cast, so you should probably ask a question.
Okay, that's all right. But this is my question. As you were talking about your relationships with schools and working with schools to bring in students and engaging in those discussions about curriculum and about experiences, I'm interested to know your interaction specifically with students with disabilities and helping them to understand. We know as special educators that one of the greatest predictors, as it is for general ed students, one of the greatest predictors of employment success is involvement in low-tech or career tech at the high school level. So we know that works for us. I'm interested to hear your perspectives as employers regarding working with students with exceptionalities within the programs that you provide, particularly not just for work skills, but also for the soft skills that you mentioned as well, which are so critical to employment success.
So in case people watching the live stream didn't hear the question, it was a question about students with special needs. I'm eager to hear the answers, but we also don't want to give the impression that CTE is particularly for students with special needs, because the best students also benefit from CTE. Somebody want to jump in on the special needs question? Okay. Dan, reliable.
It's a work in progress, I'll tell you that. And I'll also tell you, we're not going to put them on $1 million machine, start punching buttons. I mean, just not going to happen. However, we have a range of activities that have to be done in our facility, one of which is taking cardboard and basically shredding it. It's not actually shredding it, but it makes it crumpled so you can use it for packaging devices. We decided that, why we do that? Why don't we have the Sheltered Workshop down the road do that for us, and they can pay their employees and subcontracts. So we gave them our machine and said, here, do that for it. And it's actually pretty fun work. And so they're just really, wound up about that. They get good experience, they get good pay, that kind of thing. And we're also working with some of our tech ed teachers that have manufacturing within as part of their program for their tech ed. And again, that same range, so some of that more basic kind of thing. They're actually working with special ed teachers on those kinds of things and engaging the students. So, and they get involved with some of the marketing materials and all that kind of thing. So I mean, we see collaboration with tech ed teachers spanning outside of their walls with the other classroom teachers, including special ed, because they're doing real life work. And so it's work in process. I didn't answer your question probably to your satisfaction, but it may be more engaging than lots of other kinds of disciplines in the K-12 schools.
Did I see a question over on that side? Drew? Tell us who you are.
Associate building contractor. It was great listening to you all very inspiring, your success stories. I would like to just get a jump start where you see the government, whether it's federal or state, playing a role to bridge that skills gap.
Great. Question about policy. What can government do to help? And I'll even add to it a little bit. What can government do to help to create some more incentives for people like you, more companies to do what you all are doing? And please, everybody jump in. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I think there are sort of four areas that that we've tended to focus on. One is a recognition that CTE is a driver of economic development, and so we need to identify sort of where those growth opportunities are for economic development in our communities. And so policymakers can help us, sort of with that identification. We need to be innovative in terms of our curriculum that we're developing, the credentials that we're providing, moving towards more competency-based type of programs, establishing benchmarks. So what's a good CTE program? What is a CTE program that, could use improvements? And I think policymakers will be important partners in that effort. And then kind of related to the last question, I think there's a recognition that the population served by CTE needs to expand to really include almost all ages. So we need to go younger because we need to expose the middle school children to the opportunities that are available to them to get them thinking along those kind of pathways, provide that career education. We need to focus on the adults that might be a little bit underemployed and with some additional skills training. We need to focus on these other populations, veterans and the incarcerated and GED and all of these other populations that need to be served by the programs that we develop. And how do we do that? How do we develop curriculum that can do that. And then lastly is this sort of professional development, supporting teachers and administrators so that they're well prepared to deliver these programs.
Great list. Others want to jump in? Policy, Carol?
You know, I posed that very question to our partners in terms of preparation for coming here. So let me point out that right now, and I think this is a very successful program that we have, because when the students do continue their education on that 9-14 and earn that associate's degree, it's free of cost. But there could be a time and place when it's not free of cost.
It's free of cost because who's paying for it?
The Department, the city, the New York City Department of Ed and the City University are funding it. The teacher training, the external visits that they do, the externships, those days are paid for. But again, there could be a time when there isn't the funding available, and they're not paid for through us, through Con Edison. They are paid for through the New York City Department of Education. But in speaking also to the university, what they have found in trying to attract partners is that sometimes businesses feel they don't have the capacity that's needed to dedicate the employees to the model that we're using. So perhaps incentives could assist in that.
Great. Someone else? Jamie? Talk about policy?
Sure. For us, it comes back to the realization of what aligning the resources with the positions today and into the future. So we need policy, and we're members of Associated Builders and Contractors, in large part because of their ability to take what is a very broad voice and make it a very singular one to drive those decisions and ensure that people recognize that the work can't get done if we don't have the individuals with the skill sets to do it. So the policy is really the realization that these positions are here, they are well paid, they are not going away. You can't outsource construction, so you need to make sure that we have strong career and tech programs that are going to continue to fill the pipe.
Okay. Anyone else want to pipe in on policy? Go ahead.
I think the one thing I'm always concerned about is how it fits into Davis-Bacon wage rates, and that we have a area that it can fit in, and that we don't end up with a bunch of requirements that are like quotas, that we have the best fit for the apprentice program. And that means we're going to interview them several times.
Right.
And it's going to be not only the company interviewing them, it's going to be the community college interviewing them. And that we need it to be broad-based across many community colleges, not just in certain spaces.
Great. Dan, policy?
Well, I'll tell you that a friend of mine and I, in the same boat, helped draft some legislation that's being considered in Wisconsin right now at the state level, and that is where, again, partnerships. We get involved with donating equipment, donating cash to tech ed programs because they don't have, they have a hard time getting good enough equipment. And so we're saying, the legislation says if for $10,000 to $50,000 grants that the state would match what the businesses give and what the school district gives so they can properly equip some of these tech ed programs. And it's self-regulating because we businesses aren't going to give money to something that isn't right. And so if you've got a really good program, if you've got a really good teacher, if you are engaging these students, if you're fixing the skills gap, here you go. And here's some more money from the state so they can, because students that are working on equipment from the 50s and 60s are not going to see what's really going on.
Great question. Okay. Another, I think we're waiting for one more senator, but yes, please, go ahead. Tell us who you are.
Tim Kaine, National School Board Association, and I just want to know what academic preparation you think high school graduates should have to be able to get into your apprenticeship program and be successful, for them to be prepared to go and get these licenses.
So just to be clear, some of these people are actually working with high school kids, right? But let's talk about academic preparation. That's a
What kind of qualifications do they need when they get in high school?
great.
I'll make this as simple as possible. They have to have math skills, they have to have communication skills, and they have to have those critical skills and be able to work with the team. That, if they come with those things, they are welcome in our industry.
But good math skills. Let's emphasize good math skills.
High-quality math skills.
This is not for kids who are flunking out, right? Others want to jump in?
It's the math and the we call them soft skills. I don't know if they're soft skills or not. And what we found is some of our apprentices, as we're going through the training of them, that we may find somebody that's a little weak in math. So we go to the community college and we say we need to have some help with this, and they do it. And you know, that's the other thing that's different from everything we've always done in the past. I'd hire somebody. That person would come to work, and I'd see him when I'm either going to fire him or because he did something wrong. I wouldn't go and see him. And with the apprenticeship program, that person's going to school. He's got a mentor that's within the company. If the school sees a problem, the school comes back and says, hey, you know, you want to talk to Tom here. Tom could use a little more guidance one way or another.
Go ahead.
I think, from your perspective, I was on the school board for 12 years, by the way, so I feel your pain. But two things. I think they need to know the range of what's required. So I'll give you a snapshot of our company. At our company, high school is good enough for 10% of our jobs. That's it. Technical college required for 70% of our jobs, and university 4-year for 20% of our jobs. So that's the first thing. So we can't just do high school for all, right? Second thing is STEM. Technology is changing all the rules, and it's what's giving people amazingly careers. They soar in their careers, or they are desperate, and technology is changing everything. And so you better keep up with that, or you're in for a lifetime of disappointment.
I think we have time for one more question. Go ahead, please. Tell us who you are. This is especially
Yeah,
New York intensive question.
That was a problem, and it took a very long time. So it was, as I said too, we began the process in 2011, I believe, and the school opened in 2013. The curriculum with the community college was just approved like a week ago. So it was a very long process, and that is one of the barriers that was pointed out by the City University in terms of working with the state. It was difficult to accelerate that.
Okay, one more. We're waiting for Senator Baldwin, who's going to come through the door any moment. So one more. Please tell us who you are.
Mitchell Burgess from Caucus and Baldwin's office. When we hear things like the unemployment rates of 250,000 for Ohio, I would assume that's mostly not freshly graduated high school seniors. So I know you touched on it a little bit with the workforce being older and unemployed. Are there avenues for people like that to get into these kind of programs so they can get into your kind of
Great question. Okay. Why don't you go for it? Oh, you know what?
The Jumpstart program.
Go ahead. We have the senator here, but finish the sentence.
The Jumpstart program that I spoke about earlier, we had age ranges from 20 to mid-50s in that program. Because we were doing it through the Workforce Investment Board, we were able to tie better into those unemployed and underemployed, and it did give us a wider range of individuals. So programs like that, if we could scale them for the larger industry, I think that could become substantial to meeting that need.
So there's so much more to say, but Senator Baldwin is with us, another chair of the Senate CTE Caucus. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Tamar. I really appreciate it. It looks like it was a packed house for the briefing. That's terrific. Thank you all for your commitment to bringing great ideas from the field to the Congress of the United States. I wanted to just recognize my Career and Technical Education Caucus co-chairs. It is a joy, actually, to work with this caucus. There's some that are kind of active, some that are kind of passive. This one really is, I think, one of our best Senate caucuses. And I've really enjoyed partnership with all of the co-chairs, but particularly I wanted to recognize Senators Portman and Kaine today for convening this important dialogue. And I also want to thank Dan, you don't have nameplates in front of you. So Dan, Dan, right here. Welcome. How'd it go? Did they
Great,
receive
awesome.
you well?
So much more to say.
I know, so I just have to say that's like my life here. It's like I could listen and, continue these dialogues forever and still get great information. But yet we have these schedules that constrain it all. I just wanted to say a few words. I know you've had a great session. It's been terrific for me to be able to work across party lines to support a number of reforms that recognize that we need to do a better job of supporting CTE students and ensuring that they are better trained for post-secondary education and better equipped for the high skills economy that we have today and certainly we know is in the future. As today's discussion highlighted, career and technical education is one of the most effective vehicles for responding to the labor market changes and the workforce readiness needs of business and industry. Just as business and the education community are working together at the local level, Washington needs to work together in a bipartisan way. And as we look at the Perkins Career and Technical Education reauthorization, I am very proud to be a supporter with Senators Portman and Kaine of the Educating Tomorrow's Workforce Act. Among other things, this bipartisan legislation promotes partnerships between local businesses, regional industries, and other community stakeholders to create pathways for students to internships, to service learning experiences, or apprenticeships as they transition into the workforce or to post-secondary education. Now, I'm also a member of the United States Senate Competitiveness Caucus, and frankly, a caucus that's a great complement to the CTE caucus. And a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to highlight a partnership in the state of Wisconsin that this legislation that we're talking about here today will help us grow across the country. At that briefing, Snap-on Tools, a great made-in-Wisconsin company, and the CEO was here to talk about the partnership that Snap-on Tools has with Gateway Technical College in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They are working together and they have put in place a nationally recognized education and training partnership that addresses the needs for industry skill certification. Today's discussion, I know, has made it clear that we understand the challenges that we face and that we have models of success that we can use to build a roadmap to actually navigate a new frontier in workforce readiness and manufacturing at a time when we really desperately need to improve industry partnerships with educational institutions, whether it's high schools, tech schools, or community colleges. So I simply want to thank and add my thanks to all of you for being here, for briefing our staff members and other interested stakeholders. We have a lot of work to do together, but it is informed by your input. And thank you all for attending today. And shall I give you the microphone back as our moderator to close things out?
I think you've closed.
Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you to our panelists.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
If you're ever in